Hello and welcome to Analysis with me, John Rees. India's upcoming election has everything. It has 788 million voters, for one thing, and it has youth, almost a third of all voters, in fact. Then there's corruption, endemic after 10 years of rule by the Indian National Congress. Even more seriously, there's a threat of sectarian violence coming from the right-wing BJP of Narendra Modi, widely expected to be the victor. Modi was Chief Minister of Gujarat when the state went through 3 days of intercommunal violence in 2002 that resulted in the deaths of 800 Muslims and nearly 300 Hindus. Modi and other senior government and police officials were accused of initiating the violence, but in 2012, Modi was cleared by the Supreme Court. His candidacy has prompted fears of a rise in Hindu nationalism should the BJP party emerge victorious. But are these fears grounded? And what does the future hold for India's Muslims? With me in the studio are Dr. Dibesh Anand, who's Head of Department of Politics and International Relations at Westminster University, Irfan Mustafa, Secretary-General of the Indian Muslim Federation in the UK, Dr. Simona Vittorini from the School of African and Oriental Studies, and we're joined on Skype by Mohammed Mullah, Chair of the Indian Muslim Welfare Society. But first, let's catch up with this report.
As the world's largest democracy gears up for elections, the mood among India's various communities ranges from excitement to deep concern. Polls indicate that the opposition BJP party and their prime ministerial candidate, Narendra Modi, look set to top the poll in May. The Hindu nationalist and Chief Minister of Gujarat state is said to be attracting a wave of support on the back of growing anti-corruption sentiment in Indian society, something that is proving problematic for the incumbent Indian National Congress, fighting election under its vice chair, Rahul Gandhi, as the party has struggled to distance itself from a string of high-profile corruption cases. Throughout the campaign, Modi has highlighted his economic record as leader of Gujarat, but he has also sought to downplay the legacy of the 2002 Gujarat violence between the state's Hindu and Muslim communities, in which 2,500 mostly Muslim citizens were killed. Human rights groups have since said that the riots have been used by Islamists to recruit Indian Muslims to militant groups. Many Muslim and secular Hindu groups have criticized Modi's handling of the crisis, alleging that his administration did little to stop the violence, thereby entrenching sectarian conflict. But while the legacy of the violence is very much part of this election, many analysts feel that Modi has so far been successful in distancing himself from the violence.
Events of 2002 are very much in the election coverage. I mean, over the past decade since 2002, he's very much tried to reinvent himself away from this sort of Hindu nationalist firebrand to essentially a competent economic politician. I mean, he's tried to shift towards good governance, towards anti-corruption, very much away from his initial incarnation.
The troubled Indian National Congress has also looked to use Modi's handling of the violence against him. Earlier this month, the head of India's National Commission for Minorities admitted that much of the data relating to a damning government report on the violence has been lost, with many critics alleging that they had been wiped from government records. The chair of the commission has since called for a full inquiry.
Yes, but there has been a failing on the part of the Commission insofar as its conservation of records is concerned, and therefore I hope that when the inquiry is completed, they will be able to reform this.
In India, Muslims are now estimated to make up roughly 18% of the country's population, up 5% since the 2001 census, though the full religious breakdown of the 2011 census has not been released, over concerns of stoking up fears among India's diverse communities. While many are concerned at the prospect of Modi's BJP taking power, Dr. Gareth Price suggested that the legacy of mistrust surrounding Gujarat may stop him forming a government in India's fragmented regional party system.
You know, his style is autocratic. Treatment of Muslims in Gujarat has been widely criticised, not just relating to the 2002 riots. And it's going to be very hard to replicate that model across India, where 20% of the population are Muslims. So that would be concerning. I think, frankly, a more likely scenario is that it won't be a Narendra Modi-led government that comes in, because the events of 2002 may well come back and affect his ability to actually form a government after the election.
Nathaniel Lema Sanson, Islam Channel.
Okay, so let's start with the really tricky bit, electoral prediction. Is the BJP going to win?
I mean, I would not go into prediction of it, partly because there's a lot of permutation and combination, specifically in terms of regional parties. You have to understand, most of these, polls are conducted in cities or in big towns, and most of the voters live in villages. So often it is portrayed as Narendra Modi versus Rahul Gandhi, which is between Congress versus BJP. But the fact of the matter is, it's mostly regional parties, so small socialist parties, caste-based parties that play a more crucial role. So their role will be quite important.
So you think it's not predictable?
I hope it's not predictable. I mean, because if he comes, then that would be, I mean, in the sense, sort of an end to Indian democracy.
Okay. Irfan, what do you reckon?
I will go with Dr. Debrishis Roy, but I would not say it is the end of the democracy because BJP has been in the past. India's constitution is very strong and it gives rise to everybody, religious basis and everything. So it is very difficult to change that one. And I think they have given right to everybody to live. And he's right that the voters live in the hype up in the media has been given to BJP and corruption and other things, which is a part of the Indian politics at the moment. So I don't think that is bad, but Indian democracy will survive. That is my way. Modi or no Modi. And still the young voters will take some decision, and regional parties will play certainly, and third front certainly will play a very good part. That we have seen in 2004 election and 2009 election. Predictions are different, but it will change something, and we will wait. It will be interesting to see how it settles down there.
Simona, what do you make of the claim that we heard in the package there that the BJP is attempting to move away from the image of the past? Is that cosmetic? Is it real? Is it true?
Narendra Modi and the BJP have been very successful in repackaging the BJP and Modi's own image, and he has repackaged himself as a doer, as a messiah of economic development. And this has been very successful, particularly because it has been reported in the media vastly. Narendra Modi is a person who has a huge public persona, virtual and real in all sense. So it has been successful. You're asking if it is just a cosmetic? That's a difficult question to answer because the successes in Gujarat are partly there to support the idea that he's a man who can deliver on development. And this is something that a large proportion of the electorate and the media in particular and Indian Inc., the business classes, are very much happy to support. So it has successfully moved from his image of the person who was in charge at the time of the Godra massacre in 2002. Okay.
Well, just let me bring Mohammed Molina in here now, joins us on Skype. Do you think that I think perhaps what Simona was suggesting there is that the kind of weight of the BJP's presence in politics has moved away from the sectarianism and towards a stress on economic responsibility, economic capability?
Not really, because as far as we can see, it is a repackaging exercise. What Modi and his government or his party has been really successful is repackaging or hiding their real identity, to be honest. But as far as the Muslims are concerned, we all know what Modi stands for and who's actually controlling the BJP, which is the RSS, which are fundamentally a fascist organization, as far as we can see.
Okay, Irfan, you were nodding that. When Mohammed was saying it's more of a disguise than a real shift.
No, that's what I'm saying. This is mostly disguising them. And mostly, I think the Indian National Congress is responsible because Congress parties, there's so much corruption. People are fed up. And there is a hope in the other parties, like Aam Aadmi Party has come. There is a third front coming up. And that is what we're trying.
This is the common man.
Yeah, Aam Aadmi Party, they're coming up. So the media is trying to hype up and trying to rebrand Modi. But everything is not good in Gujarat. The reports have been found that the child mortality rate is very high. So if the successful state can't look after young children, how they can look after them? The Gujaratis have been always very entrepreneurial, very business-minded. They do that. The Western states always done better in the past also. It is not Modi's doing that. He is successful and he's doing. There are a lot of things. The infrastructure is very poor inside Gujarat also, and it is coming out through other sources. So Modi is just saying that he is very successful. And India, if you take out Gujarat, India's problem is different than Gujarat's problem. How he will handle that, then just saying that he will just in one day will do it, I don't think that is possible. And Mr. Mullah is right, that behind BJP mask is RSS, which is a fundamentally very not secular organization, has not been, and that is worrying thing more. Who will take control of that?
Okay. Now everybody's mentioned so far the economic situation. So let's all look at that in a bit more detail. What have we got? Lower growth, but growth disproportionately in some areas rather than others. High inflation.
Yeah. So again, in fact, I disagree with the other speakers here, partly when we say that, look, Congress is involved with a lot of corruption. It is. But so was BJP. So has BJP been in different states. What the difference is that, India's economic growth since 90s has not been percolating down to the common people, and that's common to any neoliberal country. So countries that have gone through liberalization and privatization. Where Modi has been successful is trying to fool or rather assure Hinduized middle classes that he is no longer sort of connected to what happened in 2002, which is quite a big, in a sense, it's a propaganda exercise. Because you see, 2 years ago, when Modi's name came up for prime ministers, at that time there were a lot of media reports about how RSS and Modi are having some kind of tension. That was all fraud. Because we know very clearly that RSS is very much behind him. So if anyone has to complain about Modi, they go and complain to RSS. So we clearly see that he is very much part and parcel of that RSS and Hindu nationalism. He has not moved beyond it, and he will not move beyond it. The point is, he has to somehow get the middle classes who in 2002 did not like the killing of Muslims to accept that how could they vote for Modi. And they can only do that because it's presented as a development messiah. But when you look at very closely, not only growth in Gujarat, but growth in other parts of India, he has no solution. His solutions are largely for big corporations, and big corporations, those who own Indian media. And that is why Indian media is largely pro-Modi. So all those things come together. And in that sense, the reason I said is, I disagree with you when you say that, Indian democracy is strong enough because constitution is strong enough. To some extent, yes. But democracy is not only about procedures. It's also about certain kind of substantive right. If Muslims have to vote for BJP, right, in order to survive, which is what they have to do in Gujarat now, in order to survive, that is not citizenship. That is fascism of certain kind. And that is what we are witnessing now, that most Indian Muslims and many even genuine secularists, right, they're quite anxious about Modi's rise and what it implies in the long term.
Simona, are they right to be?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something as well. There is maybe there is a sort of the BJP, if Modi and the BJP will emerge out of these elections are victorious, they won't be able to rule without entering into, I don't think so at least, without entering into a coalition. And I think this coalition will provide certain safeguards for the minorities or for, or even to strengthen India's democracy. And I think this exercise of Modi presenting himself into this new repackaged image is part of this BJP exercise. The BJP knows that when it was able to govern at the center, we could only do it by minimizing its ethno-religious mobilization and or fascist language. And it can only do so because it needed the support of partners, and partners will draw a line at a certain point. Regional partners, caste-based parties, smaller parties. And this can be a guarantee for minorities and maybe even the Muslims of India in toning down the harshest BJP language and policies. The only question is that Modi in Gujarat has not a past of ruling with a coalition. He's not a coalition man, so this is a big question mark.
Okay.
for the future.
Mohammed Mullah, what do you reckon to that? Because, I mean, certainly we do know of cases where radical or extreme parties have entered coalitions and their behaviour has been moderated by the coalition. But we can probably think of cases internationally where they've entered coalitions and this has dragged the whole political spectrum into a worse place. Which of those variants do you think might happen?
Fundamentally, I disagree with the previous speakers. I don't think it's going to make a blind bit of difference whether Modi enters into coalition with minority parties, because the BJP is going to be the biggest party in the coalition. They will get through the legislations, whatever at their whim. So if you look at the situations of Muslims in Modi's Gujarat, Modi's been in power for last 3 terms in Gujarat. The Muslims in Gujarat are living fundamentally as a second-class citizens. They haven't, Modi tends to be advocating about his economic miracle. But if you go to Gujarat and look at the situations Muslims living in, the majority of the wealthy people are from the Hindu majority. I don't think many Muslims have benefited from the so-called economic miracle. So no, I fundamentally disagree with the previous speakers. I don't think it's going to make any difference whatsoever, to be honest.
Fine. Let's take up that point because Mohammed's mentioned it, Dibesh mentioned it earlier, that the sort of neoliberal economic model isn't really, as it hasn't in other places, getting very far down the population. Is that leading, as it has done in other places, to a kind of dislocation between the mass of Indians and the political process as a whole?
I think so, yeah, because one thing is I think Dr. Roy has picked up that in Gujarat and India is totally different. Managing just Gujarat and managing India is totally 2 different kind of things. So Modi, if he comes power, I hope he will not, but if he comes in power, that will be totally different with the coalition problem. Of course, he will be the leader. If he will be leader, he will have a say, and RSS will be behind it. But how to manage those problems in vast India, and that will he controlled Gujarat, something his minister has been implicated in the rights, and there are others have been implicated in that. One thing is problem in India is law and order. Who can bring to that way? And it is like I think that is a big problem for any government who comes in the next future. So see how and then comes the economy. How to distribute, and again that was a good point raised by the mostly in big industrial people who are controlling the media also, they want to change, and they want to bring it, and the distribution of wealth is not all over India, it's not been done. The basic rights of education, health and security has been not distributed. So though anybody who will come next have a big task to do it, and I think the young people, the young voters are looking for that, and I hope they will. The way they will vote, it will, somehow shape the future India.
Okay, well, we'll be looking at that exact question just after the break. But for the moment, we've got to take a break. Do rejoin us after the adverts, and we'll be discussing more about India's future and the upcoming elections.